From lowly cadets cleaning blaster parts to grand admirals commanding entire fleets, the Empire ran on a strict chain of command. Ever wondered how these ranks truly worked? Today we break down every Imperial rank in minutes, secrets included. Basics and visual hierarchy. The Galactic Empire maintained its strict order not only through starships and fear, but also through a clearly defined visual system of uniforms and insignia. Every officer displayed a rank plaque on the chest, a carefully arranged grid of colored squares that indicated authority and responsibility. Junior officers carried a single row of squares, while higher officers displayed 2 rows, creating an unmistakable hierarchy that anyone could recognize at a glance. The colors themselves held specific meaning within the system. Red and blue combinations were most often linked to the Army and Navy, while yellow or yellow mixed with blue marked intelligence and Imperial Security Bureau positions. Those metallic cylinders clipped to the uniform pocket were not a simple decoration. They represented areas of specialty and levels of clearance that determined access within the Imperial chain of command. This system even evolved with time. In the era of the original trilogy, the plaques were shown as simple single-layer tiles, while newer media introduced double-stacked plaques to emphasize status more clearly. The result was a visual language of power, a way for the Empire to broadcast authority without a word being spoken. In simple terms, it was like wearing one's career resume openly on the chest, entirely in the service of the Empire. Enlisted and entry officers. The Imperial war machine relied on an enormous foundation of enlisted soldiers and crew who formed the faceless backbone of its power. Stormtroopers, raw recruits, and countless ship crewmen filled this role, providing the manpower that carried out orders without question. They were rarely celebrated, yet their presence was essential, for the Empire needed obedient followers to maintain control across an entire galaxy. Above these troops stood the first layer of leadership, the entry officers of the Navy and the Army. Ensigns and midshipmen had only just graduated from the academies and were often uncertain in their duties, which led many veterans to underestimate them. Their insignia plaques displayed only a single red tile beside a single blue tile, a subtle mark that identified them as beginners within the chain of command. A step higher came the lieutenants, who wore 3 tile plaques. The design differed depending on the service branch. Naval lieutenants carried the sequence of blue, blue, and red, while Army lieutenants bore red, red, blue. These officers represented the first sign of real responsibility. Yet their role was less about designing schemes or shaping grand strategy, and more about following orders with precision, serving as the middle link between commanders and troops. Mid-level officers. The structure of Imperial command grew more defined at the mid-level stage, where officers began to carry both greater authority and heavier expectations. At the entry point of this tier stood the ranks of lieutenant commander and commander. Within the Navy, the plaque of a commander displayed 3 blue tiles followed by 1 red, a clear visual marker of an officer who had progressed beyond the uncertainty of the academy years and into the realm of proven responsibility. From there, the next step rose to the captain or colonel, depending on the branch of service. A naval captain carried a plaque of 3 red tiles and 1 blue, while an army colonel bore the more elaborate badge of 3 red squares paired with 3 blue. These symbols indicated leaders who managed entire units, whether that meant a ship's crew or a full regiment on the ground. Their presence represented stability within the hierarchy, yet also the first taste of significant command. Beyond them stood the Commodore and Brigadier, transitional ranks that bridged the gap into the world of flag officers. Their plaques were configured with 4 red tiles balanced against 4 blue, giving them an unmistakable visual weight. In many ways, this was the stage where Imperial officers began to gain recognition for presence and appearance as much as for skill, leading some to jest that incompetents often received promotion simply for the ability to look busy. Lag officers and high command. At the top of the Imperial hierarchy stood the flag officers, the men and women whose plaques displayed authority across entire fleets and vast armies. Admirals and generals represented the backbone of this level, and their badges made that status unmistakable. In the Navy, the Admiral's plaque carried 6 blue tiles arranged in a commanding line, while within the Army, a general wore 6 red tiles that communicated equal weight and authority. These visual symbols spoke instantly to the immense responsibility such figures held, as they directed battles that spanned planets and star systems rather than single units or isolated regiments. Subdivisions existed within these lofty ranks, giving shape to roles such as Vice Admiral or Rear Admiral. Their insignia followed the same color logic, with shifts in the arrangement or count of tiles marking the distinction between one title and the next. The Empire relied heavily on such clarity, ensuring that officers of every level could recognize authority the moment they saw it. Among these leaders, the Commodore stood as an earlier step into the realm of flag ranks, a reminder that even within the upper echelons, hierarchy remained firmly layered. Above all of them, however, stood the Fleet Admiral. This position represented the supreme figure of naval power, often depicted with plaques that carried 5 or more tiles, though most officers and crew simply referred to the title as Admiral. It was that kind of rank that suggested the holder had long outgrown the modest dignity of 2 stars, commanding instead with a presence that encompassed the entire galaxy. Before we move on through the Imperial ranks, hit like and subscribe if you're enjoying the journey. It's quick, it really supports the channel, and now let's continue climbing the Empire's hierarchy. Regional power, Moffs and Grand Moffs. While admirals and generals commanded fleets and armies, true regional authority rested with the Moffs. They served as political military governors who oversaw entire oversectors, controlling resources, enforcing law, and directing garrisons with loyalty to the Emperor. Their influence ensured that Imperial power remained concentrated rather than scattered. Above them stood the Grand Moffs, rulers of immense strategic territories. The most famous, Tarkin, wielded authority across multiple oversectors. His elaborate insignia of 6 blue, 3 red, and 3 yellow tiles marking near sovereign command. Such titles granted power to shift the fate of entire systems while answering only to the Emperor. The pinnacle, Grand Admirals and Grand Generals. At the peak of the Imperial hierarchy stood the rarest titles, the Grand Admirals and the Grand Generals. These roles represented the highest level of military power beneath the Emperor himself. Grand Admirals were the elite of the Navy, their pure white uniforms and plaques of blue, yellow, and red tiles marking them as untouchable symbols of precision and command. Thrawn, the most renowned, was celebrated for his brilliance in strategy and culture. The army equivalent, the Grand General, held similar sweeping authority, trusted with entire legions. Both ranks stood as living declarations of ultimate loyalty and imperial perfection. Intelligence and ISB. Beyond the sharp uniforms and colored plaques of the regular Imperial military stood a quieter but far more intimidating hierarchy. The officers of the Imperial Security Bureau and the wider Imperial Intelligence Network. The ISB followed a rank system that loosely mirrored the military structure, yet its insignia often set it apart. Some officers wore plaques of pure blue or bore striking yellow patterns that marked their position within the security branch. Their progression began with field agents and climbed through layers of authority until it reached the office of Director, a title that carried immense political influence and fear. Imperial Intelligence, on the other hand, operated less like a battlefield command and more like an oversight agency. Titles such as Special Agent, Bureau Chief, and Director held power to shape military strategy, suppress resistance, and guide political outcomes across star systems. Their authority lacked a visual spectacle, yet it rivaled admirals themselves. Fluidity, discrepancies, and legends versus canon. The ranking system of the Galactic Empire was never entirely consistent, and even the original trilogy carried noticeable mistakes. Return of the Jedi in particular displayed officers whose plaques did not match the positions they were meant to hold, leaving sharp-eyed viewers puzzled. As Star Wars storytelling continued, newer productions such as Andor, Ahsoka, and the 3rd season of The Bad Batch worked to correct these problems, placing more care into continuity and giving the rank structure a greater sense of order. The difference between Legends and canon creates another layer of intrigue. Legends filled the hierarchy with a vast range of titles, from Grand General and Field Marshal to numerous political appointments, making the Empire feel bloated with ambition and bureaucracy. Canon, however, chose a more restrained approach, trimming excess layers and leaving a disciplined framework. Yet, in both visions, those colored plaques remained powerful markers of authority. What happens when the Empire falls? After the Emperor's death at Endor, the carefully ordered structure of Imperial ranks collapsed into chaos. Without central command, ambitious officers began seizing power and declaring themselves admirals, moffs, or even higher titles. Figures like Gallius Rax and Ray Sloane tried to enforce authority in this fractured landscape, creating administrations that existed in the uncertain gray zone between loyalty and self-interest. Legends offered a similar vision, showing the Imperial remnant clinging to the old bureaucracy even as it splintered into rival factions. In both versions, the fall revealed a truth. When the central office vanishes, suddenly everyone is the boss. The Empire thrived on loyalty, fear, and ambition, and now you know exactly how its ranks stacked up. If you enjoyed this journey through Imperial power, hit subscribe, drop a like, and share to spread the rebellion against boredom. May the Force be with you.